Thank you. First of all, none of this is going to be on the test probably, so you should be covered here. They said I'm Bob Dvorsky. I'm in the Iowa Senate. Previous to that, I served 7 years in the Iowa House of Representatives. And I guess the point is, as a legislator who wants to promote affordable housing in Iowa, what are we to do? So I guess I sort of briefly outline kind of the roles of a legislator and what we could do and can do. One is going through the appropriation process, and conveniently enough, if you're chair of the Appropriation Committee in the Senate, you have a little influence on that. So I've tried to do what I could to put appropriation into affordable housing programs in the state of Iowa. I helped craft a funding mechanism for the State Housing Trust Fund, as Joe was talking about, and hopefully we can find better ways to put a better foundation under that and increase that as time goes by. More housing trust funds, local housing trust funds are established. So appropriation is one way. Policy is another way, working with different committees in the legislature and providing for affordable housing and smart planning. That's going to be another one in the next few years I think we need to work on, and we'll work on smart planning and smart growth policy. So that's another one. The other one is sort of the overall organization, and Joe alluded to this, that for several years the Department of Economic Development and the Iowa Finance Authority had different roles dealing with housing. So you had some services provided by DED and you had some by IFA. Finally now they're back together where all housing services will be on one comprehensive agency. I think that makes a lot of sense, so everybody knows there's one agency you can deal with for your housing needs, and that's going to be the Iowa Finance Authority. So I think that makes a lot of sense also. And lastly is local. What kind of local involvement should legislators have to promote affordable housing? Well, in Johnson County, fortunately, I was there when we were able to start the Housing Trust Fund in Johnson County. It's been pretty successful in moving forward and doing a lot of good works in Johnson County and moving forward to try and help affordable housing in this area. I think we've gone through maybe $1.5 million the last several years to promote housing in Johnson County. So that's one way that legislators can be involved. So those are sort of some of the roles I think legislators can do and assume to promote affordable housing in the state of Iowa and nationally. At the end of Joe's presentation, you may have noticed there were 4 ideas here to how to move forward, and I guess there's some ways we can probably address those. First one is talking about new ways and new tools to deal with affordable housing and low income and affordable housing. And as we come up with different ideas, the tax credits or whatever it might be, we want to look at those, what the federal government provides and what the state can do, and what the state can do maybe to tinker with that and make it work for the state of Iowa. That's one thing. More funding for the State Housing Trust Fund. As there are more and more housing trust funds across the state, we're having a more comprehensive usage of housing trust funds across the state, and I think if we can secure a little bit better funding for that, we'll even have more and serve more of the population for affordable housing in the state of Iowa. So trying to get more resources into the State Housing Trust Fund is useful. Workforce housing, that's another one. There's a situation in Dubuque, Iowa today where they tell me if they have a big new IBM facility in Dubuque, and they tell me today there's a need for 2,000 or 3,000 additional units in Dubuque and in a couple counties around there, I believe Dubuque and Jackson County. They could use 2,000 or 3,000 more housing units today. And if they aren't able to provide that housing units, it works in reverse. They have like 500 jobs created by IBM and they want to create more. But if they don't have the housing, they'll take those jobs and go elsewhere. So hopefully we can work on the workforce housing situation and move that forward. We do have some legislation we passed to set up a program for workforce housing. There's no funding in there right now, but one of our objectives will be to try and fund that the next time around and handle this workforce housing situation. So you not only have jobs, but you have workforce housing for those jobs. And lastly is the Smart Planning Initiative. One of the things the governor and the legislature have been working on is to create an additional situation for iJobs for 2011. And we'll be doing more funding for areas, including $2 million for the wastewater treatment plant in Iowa City, among some of those. But also there's going to be a fund of about $30 million that we're going to provide for flood mitigation, flood prevention programs. And one of the components of that is we're going to require smart growth, a smart growth component to that. So if you're going to try and get funding for, say, Cedar Rapids, say Coralville, say Iowa City, to do that, there should be a smart planning component there where you have a smart growth facility. You know, if you're going to go in and do flood mitigation or flood prevention, how are you going to do that? Are you going to have it set up so you'll have a place where you have access to transportation, water resources, you have access to anything else needed in the area? It's sort of a back to the future situation where we maybe go back the way it was several years ago. What your parents probably talked to you about, how they didn't have to travel so far to go to the grocery store or that type of thing. So we're looking at the smart growth idea, and hopefully through the incentives of iJobs, we'll be able to promote that and then eventually promote it for housing and other community development throughout the state. So I think that's a kind of a brief overview on what legislators can do and will be doing, and I'll continue to work in that role and these other roles in our legislature. And thank you.